Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all okay. I'm back with another product review for you today. This one is from Retevis in the form of the RT50 Romeo Tango 50, and it's a relatively new commercial DMR radio that's come out from Retevis. So there's quite a few companies now that are doing DMR radios based at more of the commercial user, and the main features of these sorts of radios is one, that there isn't a display, or there's a limited display, which means that anyone who isn't used to radio or the operation of radio can just be given a simple radio with no screen, just a dial on the top, and they can select the channels through that, and there's nothing they can do to go wrong. So they can't access any keypad settings, any memories, anything like that. They just have the radio and they're good to go. So if you have a security firm, or you have something doing outdoor events like a marathon or anything like that, then you can just give people who have never used a radio before, who aren't into radio or interested in radio, and they can just get it and off they go. So that's one of the main things. They usually have a reduced amount of zones because if you're on a commercial basis with these radios, i.e. a security company or a shopping centre or something like that, you're not going to have tons and tons of zones. So whereas amateurs will have like analog repeaters, digital repeaters, simplex, PMR, commercial stuff, all programmed in different zones, your average commercial user doesn't need all that stuff. They're basically only going to have usually the one or maybe two repeaters, and they can program the talk groups on them repeaters easily. So they usually have slightly less channels. Now, the thing with these radios is they are simple to use. They are aimed mainly at the commercial user, but they are still great for amateur radio and the radio hobby. So yeah, that's why I thought I'd review it for you today. Like I have done with some of the other commercial style DMR radios, they still definitely have a place in amateur radio, and are definitely still really suited to the amateur radio user. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to have a look at this Retevis RT50 that's in the box here. We're going to look at what you get inside the box. We'll have a look through programming and just basic operation, and then in another video I'll do a range test on this like I usually do. So what we'll do first is we'll just have a look at some of the specifications and features of this radio. So it has a digital tube character function. So basically it's got a concealed display behind plastic, like there's a few radios on analog that have sort of got this feature now, but it's really sort of reminiscent of the Motorola SL1600 style display. It's bright and it's quite simple and easy to view. You've got limited features and settings on there, so you know exactly where you are within the radio. It's IP67 waterproof. It's got a really rugged, sturdy design. It's tougher, and as I say, it is waterproof, so it's ideal for the outdoors, for someone who's going to be stood out in the rain, for someone who's going to be using this hiking, camping. It's definitely a handy feature to have IP67 waterproof rating on there, and it has got a rubber seal around the battery and around the earphone sockets and things like that, so you're not going to have any issues should you get caught in the rain or drop it in a puddle. It does support digital and analog modes, so it's UHF 400 to 470, which is most popular for DMR for both amateur and commercial users. There is a lot of commercial VHF DMR out there, but the main activity is on UHF, so this radio operates, as I say, on 400 to 470 megahertz, and you can easily switch between both modes. It's got two zones, so as I say, that makes things a lot more simple. You've got two zones there. 198 channels. You can still store 200 contacts, which is quite a lot, and as I say, those features are really aimed at the commercial market, and you can navigate simply between the two zones at the push of a button should you program one of those buttons to do so. It's got single call, group call and all call on the DMR side of things. It has two slime slots, so it's compatible with any other DMR system, Motorola radios, Retevis, TYT, all those sorts of radios it's still compatible with. It's got 2-tone and 5-tone signalling for the analog side of things. It's got remote stun and remote activate. So security, should you have the radio lost or stolen, you can kill that radio, and if it's found or retrieved, it can be brought back to life. It's got high and low power selectable, so the high power is 10 watts, which is really good for a handheld radio. It has a feature called Man Down or Lone Worker, so this is a security and welfare feature, so should a user not key up or press any buttons on their radio for a set amount of time, an alert will come on to prompt them to sort of check in. So should that not happen, the radio will then send an alarm tone to other radios on the talk group, alerting them to an inactive radio. So the inactive radio will key up and allow other users to listen in on any situation that may be developing. So basically, if you don't use your radio for a while, it'll let you know, and it'll prompt you to press a button, turn the volume up, change a channel, anything that's going to bring that radio back to life, and that will let the other users know. If that doesn't happen, it'll send out an alarm, and then basically any other users will know that you're potentially in trouble, and they'll come and look for you and help you. So it's quite handy. It's got Compander, so it has that's basically audio compression that compresses all audio when you transmit and then expands it when you receive. So it cleans up the signal, helps to improve the signal to noise ratio. Has a scrambler on DMR, and it's got Vox function, so that's basically voice activated transmission, and you can set the thresholds in the programming software. And of course it's got a scan function. Okay guys, so you can see quite a versatile radio there. It's got a lot of features aimed at the commercial side of things. It's got a lot of features aimed at the amateur side of things, but all of those features have the uses for both sides. So yeah, quite a versatile radio there, looking at the features and benefits on this thing. So what we'll do is we'll have a look inside the box and look at what you get in this package. Okay, so this is the box it comes in. We've got some information on the side there to tell you what the basic settings and features are. So that's quite straightforward, but we're interested in what's inside the box. So if we have a look inside, we've got a little check sheet here, which just sort of tells you some basic information, and then we've got the full user manual. So this is a 40-page manual here, and it basically covers everything, the display, the setup, the programming, key assignment, operation, all those sorts of things. So that's quite handy. It's in all in English, so you're not going to have any issues following that manual. We've got the radio itself, which we'll come to in a second. We've got the battery. So we've got the battery pack here, and this is a 7.4 volt 2200 milliamp hour battery that's got the groove around the edge that digs into that seal around the radio, which is going to keep water out, so nice and handy. We've got a 2-pin to 3-pin charger adapter there, so you can charge this in the UK. We've got our antenna. So this is a UHF antenna, 400 to 480 megahertz, little rubber duck style antenna with an SMA connector on the bottom. We've got the 2-pin power adapter here for the charger base, so this just plugs into the 3-pin one should you require it, straight into the wall, and it just plugs into the back of the charging base, and that's a 12.5 volt 500 milliamp hour power supply there for your charging base. We've got a belt clip here, rugged plastic belt clip and 2 screws there for fixing onto the back of the radio, and then we've got the charger base. Quite a decent sized chunky plastic charger base there with 2 contacts in the back and an LED indicator on the front there, and of course you plug the power supply into the back of this. So pretty straightforward, nothing out of the ordinary there guys. And then of course we've got the radio itself. Okay, so we've got the antenna, battery and radio here. Assembly is really simple. The battery just goes onto the back of the radio like so at the top, and then pushes down at the bottom, and what this does is clasps into place, that little clasp there, and what these do is pull the battery down into the shell of the radio, and that basically forms that watertight seal, which is what the IP67 rating is for. And then the antenna just screws onto the SMA connector like so. Really straightforward. So if we have a look at the radio itself, we've got 2 programmable buttons on the side there, which you can assign in the programming software. We've got our PTT on the side there for push to talk, that's for transmitting. On this side we've got basically a screw-on cap with a rubber seal around it, which protects the speaker mic and programming port on the side, and that just goes back on like so and screws into place. We've got a little label on the side there which you can write the owner on, or the radio's number. On the back we've got the opening for the battery and the battery contacts. We've got 2 screw threaded holes there for the belt clip, and on the top we've got a hole for a wrist strap or a lanyard. On the top we've got the channel selector knob there, which goes all the way around, and we've got the volume control and on-off switch as well, and of course there's an LED indicator on the top there to show you whether the radio is in transmit or receive. Antenna just screwed into the top like so, and of course it's an SMA connector, so you can remove this and upgrade to an external antenna should you need to, no problems at all. And then on the front of the radio we've got the speaker, and at the bottom we've got a microphone hole. And if we switch the radio on, you can see the bright display there, so you can see we're on DMR and we've got this set to channel 1. So what we'll do before we go any further, we'll have a look at the programming on this radio. I'll show you how to set it up, and then the basic operation will then become a lot clearer. Okay guys, so if you go to the Retevis website, to the resources page, you can get the programming software and firmware updates for this radio, like with all the other Retevis range of radios. And I've downloaded the programming software here and installed it, and sort of got started on a code plug. So like with the other DMR radios I'm not going to do a full video on like programming in detail and show you how to program this radio. I'm just going to look through the software with you. Like I say, DMR programming can be quite complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple to do. So this is the programming software. Along the top we've got some settings here, so you can open and save and exit as usual. We've got device here for read and write, and you can select your serial port number here. So when you plug your programming cable in, you need to make sure you're on the right port, otherwise the radio won't read or write. We've got language settings here, so English, simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese, and then we've got a about, which just gives you the software version. So down the side, very similar to any other DMR programming software, we've got our basic settings. So we've got basic information here, which there isn't anything put in because I haven't updated the firmware or anything in this. It's a brand new radio, but we don't need to worry about that. If we look at settings, you can see I've put my call sign in the top. We've got my DMR mark ID there. You can select a password to read or write the radio, so that just makes it a little bit more secure should the radio get lost or stolen. We can select our language, so English, Chinese are off, so it'll tell you what channel you're on, and there's a battery readout on this radio which will happen in Chinese or English. We've got our squelch level. We've got various other settings in here. Like I say, I'm not going to go through tons of it, but it's quite straightforward and quite similar to other DMR programming softwares that are out there. We can select the backlight to be on all the time, or you can select a number of minutes or seconds. So that's 20 seconds down to 1 second, so that just helps save the battery. We've got microphone settings here, so we've got a Vox delay time there and other bits and pieces. If we look at the key settings, so on the side of the radio there's there's 2 programmable keys, and they are actioned with a short press or a long press. So you can select your long press for programmable key 1 and the short press for that key, and then the same for programmable key 2. So you can see I've got mine there. Key 1 on a long press is analog monitor. P1 on a short press, you can change between the zones. And then P2 on a long press is scan, and P2 on a short press is power prompt, so that'll tell you where the battery's at. But you can see there's plenty of settings that you can change these to. You can select high and low power, scan, repeater or talk around. You can switch between your zones. You can access your one keys there for one key contact dialing, and we've got Vox, all sorts of stuff. So pretty straightforward, and it just makes those buttons a little bit more versatile. And of course, you can select how many seconds is deemed a long press. So I've got mine just set to 2 there. We've got one key call here, so you can just call a talk group or a user, and you can program those one key settings in here. So if let's say we have my best friend as on one key 1, we can just press the programmable key number 1 once on a long press for 2 seconds, and that'll send a direct call over to the person that's in one key 2. So even though the settings and features are limited on this radio due to the lack of display and low amount of zones, they've still got some of those features in there, which is nice that they've been retained. We've got zone settings. So as I say, there is zone 1 and zone 2. So in zone 1, you can program your frequencies in like so, and I've just programmed 1 in, which is my local DMR repeater, as a digital channel, of course, and I've basically got that set as my first channel. It's the echo test. So what I've done is I've put the frequency for receiving, transmitting, made sure we're on digital. Transmit power is set to high. There's no need to put a channel alias in because it doesn't show on the display, it just shows as a number. And then if we click on more, you can edit those settings in more fine detail. So you can put in your color code, you can put in your work mode, slot, you can add it to a scan list, and you can just go into a lot more detail. You can put your contact in. So the echo test is talk group 9990, so that's the contact that I've got set in. So basically I'm going to key up on that repeater, but talk group 9990, which is echo test. So really straightforward. I think this is sort of the DMR programming software that I prefer. It's a lot more simple, there's a lot less to tie in. So all you need to tie into that really is a contact, and as you can see, my digital contact here, I've got talk group 9990 in with the ID of 9990, and that is my echo test. So just going back to zone, if we want to input an analog frequency, so we'll do a repeater, we can put the receive frequency, which is the output. So in my case, it's 433,350. Transmit frequency there, 434,950. The channel type is analog. So you can see then we can put a decode CTCSS or DCS tone in, and we can put an encode CTCSS or DCS tone in. So we don't want to decode one, but we want to encode. So we want to send a signal of 82.5 to that repeater, and that will open it up. Transmit power will lead to high. The bandwidth will just set down to narrow. We don't need to name it, and if we just click on more, you can see the DMR things are changed. The DMR options are actually changed, so we've actually got analog settings here now. So we can still add it to a scan list, but you can see there's no talk group or color code options. We can put the scramble on or the compander on. So scramble will send a scrambled signal, of course, but we don't want to do that over a repeater. And we can put compander on, which basically cleans up the signal a little bit, but we don't need to do that. And of course, because we haven't got a scrambler set, the scrambler number there doesn't matter. So as you can see, we've still got the receive frequency in there. So receive settings, that's the repeater's output. We don't need a DCS or CTCSS code. We don't need a 2 or 5 tone signal on there, so we don't need to select a signal group. And then for transmit settings, we've got the repeater's input there of 434,950. We've got an encoded tone of 82.5, which is what we need to open the box, and then all these other features we don't need to touch. You can change timeout timer if you want. We'll just put that up to 2,400 seconds. We're never going to be talking for that long, I don't think. And then we just click OK, and as you can see, we've got everything we need there for an analog repeater programmed in. For simplex, so 70 centimeters calling, we'll just leave the transmit and receive frequency the same. We don't need a CTCSS code on. Put the bandwidth down to narrow, and as you can see, everything's all set up here, ready to go. So that's the basics of programming. The DMR side of things, like I say, is very simple because all you need to do is tie in a contact. You can add it to the scan list or remove it from the scan list like so. So we've got a scan list here, which is empty because I haven't put anything in it yet. We've got our receive group lists. Because there's no display, I didn't really actually use this, but you can add, so for example, if you have 16 talk groups for repeater, you can add them into a list there, and you can just name that GB7 MR, for example. That's the name of my local repeater, and that's a better way of sort of keeping your channels together. But again, it doesn't really matter on this sort of radio. All we're bothered about is getting the frequency right and the talk group and color code and slot right. DMR service here, we can set the encryption, which we don't need to do, but you've got encryption, 10 different types there, and of course we've got our 2 and 5 tone call settings there, which again we don't need to look into too much detail. So that's quite straightforward, guys. As I say, a lot simple. Just having the 2 zones just makes things a lot easier, and yeah, I'm sure you'll agree that's quite a simple bit of programming software. Once you've done everything, got everything set up, all you need to do is click on device and write everything to the radio, and that'll write all the settings you've put straight to the radio through your programming cable. Once you've done, you can unplug the radio and you're ready to go. Okay, so that's the radio programming. Quite straightforward, quite similar to other sorts of DMR style programming. I think it's easier having the 2 zones. It's a lot simpler to program, or I found it a lot simpler as well, just having those 2 zones, and you can just edit one channel in one go. So I thought that was quite a good thing. So we have got the DMR echo test programmed in here. So what we'll do is we'll just put a quick call through the local repeater, and we'll hear ourselves coming back. M3HHY testing 7MR echo test.
M3HHY testing 7MR echo test.
and you can see we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to program this up with some more stuff, and then in part 2 we'll do a radio range test on this thing and see how well it performs. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of part 1, guys. As I say, there's a lot of benefits to this radio, definitely really aimed at the commercial side of things, but I'm sure you'll agree for the amateur side of things as well, this is going to be a nice little radio, you know, for hilltopping and for, you know, just keeping in a backpack. It's a lot more simple to use than some of the other DMR style radios that have got the LCD screens on them and stuff like that. So yeah, I really like the display. It is quite a bright display, despite us being in I'm in a conservatory here, so it's quite bright and you can still see that display there. So that's another positive as well. Handy just having the 2 zones. You know, it just takes a lot of the confusion out of stuff. I think if you were to have tons of zones on this thing, you'd sort of lose where you were, or you'd have to have a cheat sheet to tell you what channels are programmed to what. So it's just handy having those 2 zones. You know, you're not going to get lost in the radio. I think the IP67 rating is a good thing on this as well, so should you get caught in the rain or drop this in a puddle, you're not going to have any issues because it's sealed and protected from that sort of thing. So yeah, let me know what you think on this one, guys. I think it's definitely a nice addition to the Retevis range of radios, and again, you know, just really does appeal to that commercial user and that outdoor user. So yeah, happy with it. Stay tuned for part 2 when we do some testing with this thing, and I've also got the Retevis RT91 handheld radio amplifier coming in another video soon as well, so we're going to be testing that with this. So stay tuned, plenty coming up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts, suggestions, any questions in the box below, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. If you want to get this radio, links are in the description below, along with the links for programming software and all those sorts of things, and we'll leave that one there. Thanks so much for watching, guys. 7-2 for now. Cheers.